The evening started off just like any other social event my wife, Emily, insisted I attend with her. I knew the routine all too well. Sit there quietly, let her and her friends dominate the conversation, and accept that I was just an accessory to her carefully curated image. But I never saw this coming. The glass of red wine hit my face before I even realized Emily had thrown it. The warm liquid dripped down my cheek, soaking into my shirt. The background noise of the restaurant seemed to hush, as if the whole room held its breath for a moment. And then came her laughter, sharp, deliberate, and full of amusement. She wasn't embarrassed or apologetic. No, she was enjoying herself. "Why do you always have to act like such an idiot?" she sneered, twirling the glass in her hand as if she were contemplating finishing the job. Her friends burst into laughter, some giggling into their napkins, others exchanging hesitant glances, unsure whether they should join in. A few looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. No one ever did. Not against Emily. I sat there, feeling the wine seep into my skin, the sour scent filling my nostrils. Every instinct screamed at me to react, to say something, to stand up for myself, to throw my own drink in her face. But I didn't. Instead, I reached for a napkin and wiped my face slowly, methodically, as if I were merely dealing with an inconvenience rather than an outright humiliation. This wasn't the first time Emily had made a scene at my expense, not even the worst thing she'd done. But something about tonight was different. There was no pretense, no weak attempt at covering her tracks. She was done pretending, and for the first time, I realized I was done, too. The eyes around the table were all on me, waiting to see how I'd react. Would I lash out? Would I storm out in a fit of anger? Would I laugh it off and let Emily win again? I did none of those things. Taking a slow breath, I set my napkin down on the table, stood up, and adjusted my damp shirt as best as I could. Then, without a word, I turned and walked away. The restaurant suddenly felt miles long as I made my way to the exit. I could hear Emily chuckling behind me, no doubt making some sarcastic comment about how dramatic I was being. But I didn't care. Not this time. By the time I reached my car, my hands were steady. No shaking. No hesitation. I slid into the driver's seat and closed my eyes for a brief moment, letting the silence wrap around me. The scent of wine clung to me, but it wasn't just that. It was the smell of something else. Finality. Not just of this evening. Not just of this humiliation. Of everything. As I pulled out of the parking lot, my mind replayed not just tonight but the last few years. The cutting remarks disguised as jokes. The dismissive glances. The way Emily treated me like I was just a piece of furniture in her life rather than her husband. It had been happening for so long, creeping into our marriage like rust eating away at metal, slow, corrosive. And I had let it. But tonight, I knew I wouldn't wake up tomorrow and pretend it hadn't happened. I wouldn't let Emily smooth things over with sweet words or meaningless gifts. I wouldn't let myself believe, even for a second, that I had to endure this any longer. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my decision was made. This wasn't just another cruel joke. This was the final straw. I stepped into the house and locked the door behind me. The familiar scent of our home filled my lungs, but it didn't bring comfort. This place hadn't felt like ours in a long time. It was hers. I walked past the framed wedding photos, the sleek decor Emily had insisted on, the perfectly curated life she had built, where I had always been an afterthought. I moved toward the kitchen and sat at the table, staring at my laptop screen. My reflection was faint in the dim light, and for the first time, I barely recognized the man looking back at me. That was about to change. I reached for a notepad and clicked my pen open. Then, I started writing. Not a letter, not a rant, not some angry outburst. A list. A list of everything Emily had ever done to me. Every snide remark, every public humiliation, every moment I had swallowed my pride just to keep the peace. I wrote down dates, words, actions, things I had tried to forget but never truly could. The memories poured out of me, almost too easily. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making her suffer. It was about remembering. Because for years, I had convinced myself that maybe I was overreacting. That maybe she didn't mean it. That maybe it was just how Emily was. But as I filled page after page with the cold, hard truth, I knew I had been lying to myself. It had never been me. It had always been her. And now, it was over. Emily didn't come home right away. I wasn't surprised. She loved attention too much to leave a party early, especially after making me the evening's entertainment. She was probably still basking in the glow of her little performance, replaying the moment in her mind, laughing at how the wine had splashed across my face. I sat alone in the silent kitchen, tapping my fingers against the wooden table. This house used to be filled with warmth, with late-night conversations, with laughter that actually meant something. But that was years ago. Now, the silence was suffocating. I glanced down at my notepad. The list had grown longer. Each line felt like an old wound reopening, things I had ignored for too long. Emily's insults had started subtly, little jabs disguised as jokes. "Oh, don't bother helping, you'll just mess it up. Fix something around the house? That's hilarious. God, you're embarrassing." At first, I had laughed them off. But over time, they became sharper, crueler, laced with an edge I couldn't ignore. And eventually, they wore me down until I didn't even recognize the person I had become. Tonight had only confirmed what I had been denying for too long. Emily didn't respect me. She didn't love me. Maybe she never had. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed a hand over my face. The scent of wine still clung to my skin. I needed a shower, but I couldn't bring myself to move. The front door opened. Her footsteps were light, too careful, like she was testing the air. She had expected me to be in bed, curled up and licking my wounds like a kicked dog. She didn't expect me to be sitting here, waiting. When she stepped into the kitchen and saw me at the table, her expression flickered. It was only for a second, but I caught it. Unease. She masked it quickly, tilting her head and smirking. "Oh, come on. You're not still upset about that, are you?" I didn't respond. She sighed dramatically, tossing her purse onto the counter. Seriously, it was a joke. Everyone was laughing. "You always take things so personally." Still, I said nothing. That's when she actually looked at me, really looked at me. Her smirk wavered. "What?" I held up the notepad. She squinted at it, confused. "What the hell is that?" I flipped it closed and set it aside. "A list." Her brows furrowed. "A list of what?" I met her gaze evenly. "Everything you've ever done to me." Silence. For the first time in a long time, Emily had no comeback. No sarcastic remark. No dismissive wave of her hand. She let out a short laugh, but it sounded forced. "Oh, please." She crossed her arms. "Don't be so dramatic." I didn't look away. Her amusement slowly faded. "You're serious?" I nodded. Something flickered across her face. It wasn't guilt. Emily never felt guilt. It was something closer to annoyance. Maybe even nervousness. She didn't like this. She didn't like that I had been keeping track. Because for years, she had counted on me forgetting. On me brushing it aside. On me letting it go. Her voice sharpened. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but I'm not in the mood for your little pity party." I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table. "You humiliated me tonight." She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God. It was a joke. You called me an idiot." She shrugged. "You acted like one." I inhaled slowly. "You threw wine in my face." She scoffed. "You deserved it." And there it was. No regret. No apology. Just justification. Emily had never seen me as an equal. I was nothing more than a prop in her life, something to parade around or ridicule depending on her mood. I pushed my chair back and stood. "This was the last time." Her brow furrowed. "What?" "This was the last time you'll ever get to humiliate me." She let out a laugh, but there was an edge to it now. A sliver of something she wasn't used to feeling, uncertainty. "Oh, please. What are you going to do? Run away? Go cry somewhere?" I smiled, but it wasn't the kind she was used to. "No," I said calmly. "I'm going to make sure you never do this to me again." I grabbed my notepad, my laptop, and turned to leave the kitchen. Emily stood frozen for a moment before calling after me. "Oh, so now you're just going to storm off like some victim? Grow up." I didn't stop. She hated this. She hated not being in control. Emily thrived on knowing exactly what buttons to push, on steering every conversation in her favor. But tonight, she had lost that power. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had finally taken it back. I sat alone in the bedroom, my laptop open in front of me, but I wasn't working. I was thinking, replaying everything over and over in my mind, as if I had missed something, some detail that would make it all make sense. Why had Emily changed so much? When had things gotten this bad? And more importantly, why had I let it go on for so long? A notification lit up my phone. A message. "Hey man, just checking in. You good?" Ryan was Emily's friend, not mine. Or at least, that's what I had always thought. He was part of her little social circle, the type who laughed along with her jokes at my expense but never went out of his way to target me himself. I stared at the message for a moment before typing back. "Not really, but I'm dealing with it." A few minutes passed before the typing bubbles appeared. Listen, I don't want to get in the middle of things, but I feel like I need to tell you something." I sat up a little straighter. "Tell me what?" There was another pause. "I don't think you know the whole story about Emily." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? Tonight wasn't just about her trying to embarrass you. A long pause. Then, finally, "She's been seeing someone else, man. For a while." Everything in my body went still. For a moment, I thought I had misread the message, but no. The words were there, staring back at me like a slap to the face. "Who?" "I don't know all the details. I swear. But I know it's someone from her office. A guy named Nathan. She doesn't even hide it when you're not around." Nathan. The name felt foreign and familiar at the same time. Emily had mentioned him before, in passing, when talking about work. He was just a friend. Of course he was. My grip on the phone tightened. "Why are you telling me this now?" Ryan's response came almost instantly. "Because I saw the look on your face when she threw that wine. Because I've been around enough to know you don't deserve this. And because no one else is going to tell you." I leaned back, exhaling slowly. It all made sense now. The late nights at the office. The way she stopped caring about even pretending to respect me. The way she treated me like I was nothing, because, to her, I was nothing. I wasn't her husband. I was an inconvenience. A barrier between her and the life she wanted. And she had been pushing me away, humiliating me, so I'd be the one to leave. That way, she wouldn't have to be the bad guy. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling. For a long time, I had convinced myself that Emily's cruelty was just her personality. That she was stressed, or tired, or that maybe I was overreacting. But I wasn't. She wasn't just cruel. She was a liar. A cheater. And she had stopped caring a long time ago. I had been played. But not anymore. The next morning, Emily came downstairs as if nothing had happened. She poured herself a cup of coffee, scrolling through her phone, acting as if the events of last night didn't matter. I watched her from across the kitchen, my mind buzzing with everything I now knew. She had no idea that I was no longer the fool she thought I was. "Morning," she said flatly, not even looking up. I took a slow sip of my coffee, studying her. I could have confronted her right then. Thrown her betrayal in her face. Demanded the truth. But I didn't. Not yet. Because now, I was playing by a different set of rules. "Morning, Emily," I said casually. She looked up, as if surprised by my tone. Maybe she had expected me to still be sulking, to still be licking my wounds from last night. But I wasn't broken. I was waiting. And she had no idea what was coming. Emily had no idea that I knew. She carried herself like she always did, calm, confident, untouchable. She thought she was still in control. That's what made it satisfying to watch her, knowing she had no clue that everything was about to change. I spent most of the morning going about my routine as usual. I had coffee. I answered emails. I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me upset. And that was the first time I saw her hesitate. She expected a fight. Expected me to lash out or sulk. But I didn't give her either. Instead, I played it cool. and that unnerved her. "Are we just going to pretend last night didn't happen?" she finally asked, standing in the doorway of the kitchen. I looked up, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "What about last night?" Her brow furrowed. She hadn't expected that response. "The restaurant. The way you stormed out." I shrugged. "Oh, that. Yeah, I'm over it." She squinted slightly, like she was trying to read between the lines. "You're over it?" I smiled. "Yeah." I realized it wasn't worth being upset over. She scoffed. "Right. You just suddenly stopped caring." I nodded, taking another sip. "Pretty much." Emily shifted slightly, crossing her arms. I could see it, the slight tension in her jaw, the flicker of uncertainty in her expression. She didn't like this. She didn't like not knowing what I was thinking. 4 years, she had dictated the terms of our relationship. She had held the control. No. Now, she could feel it slipping. She stood there for a few seconds longer, like she was waiting for me to break, to react the way she expected me to. But I didn't. And eventually, she sighed and left the room. I exhaled slowly, setting my mug down. She was rattled. Good. That afternoon, I made a decision. I needed proof. Ryan had told me about her affair, but if this was going to end the way I wanted, I couldn't just go off of rumors. I needed something concrete. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I started digging. First, I went through our phone records. Emily wasn't careful. She never had to be. She thought I was too much of an idiot to ever question her. But the moment I saw one number repeatedly appearing late at night, over and over again, I knew. Nathan. The guy from her office. She had been calling and texting him for months. Then, I checked our bank statements. Expensive lunches. Hotel charges. Unexplained purchases that weren't for me. It was all there. Right in front of me. Undeniable. Emily had never even tried to hide it. Because she had never expected me to look. I sat there, staring at the evidence, feeling an odd sense of clarity wash over me. There was no room for doubt anymore. No second-guessing. No wondering if I was overreacting. She had been cheating. And she had been laughing at me the whole time. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I was just done. And it was time to show her that. That night, Emily came home late. I was sitting in the living room when she walked in, tossing her bag onto the counter like she always did. She barely glanced at me. "Long day." I hummed. "Yeah, I bet." She walked past me, pausing briefly, as if she had caught something in my tone. She turned slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled, shaking my head. "Nothing." She narrowed her eyes. "You've been acting weird all day." I shrugged. "Have I?" She crossed her arms. "Are you trying to be passive-aggressive?" "No," I said simply, standing up. "I just think it's funny." Emily frowned. "What's funny?" I grabbed my phone and scrolled until I found what I was looking for. Then, I turned the screen toward her. She looked at it, and I saw everything change in an instant. Her confident expression, gone. Her relaxed posture, stiffened. Her lips parted slightly as her gaze flicked over the records on my screen. Call logs, bank statements, text records, proof. I tilted my head. "You were saying?" For the first time, Emily had nothing to say. She just stared at the phone, her face carefully blank. I could practically see her mind racing, trying to come up with a way to spin this, to regain control. But there was no controlling this. The truth was right in front of us. And I wasn't letting her talk her way out of it. Slowly, she exhaled through her nose. "Where did you get that?" I smirked. "Not really the point, is it?" She swallowed, then straightened her shoulders, forcing a laugh. "Wow. So now you're spying on me." I chuckled. "Spying? No. But it's interesting that you think that's the problem here." Her jaw clenched. "You're being ridiculous." I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "No, Emily. You're ridiculous. You've been cheating on me for months. You've been making a fool out of me while parading around like I should be grateful to even be with you." I shook my head. But you know what's even funnier? She glared. What? I leaned in slightly. You weren't even subtle. You didn't even try to hide it. Because you thought I was too stupid to ever figure it out. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't deny it. Because she couldn't. She had underestimated me. And now she was realizing her mistake. I stepped back and pocketed my phone. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make this divorce as painful for you as possible. Her nostrils flared. You wouldn't. I cut her off. You're going to lose half of everything. Your reputation. Ruined. Your perfect little life. Over. I smirked. And the best part? You did it to yourself. Emily's face twisted with anger, her hands balling into fists. You're pathetic. I tilted my head. And you're exposed. Silence. She was seething. She hated this. Hated that she had lost control. Hated that, for once, I was the one pulling the strings. I turned toward the stairs. I'd suggest you start thinking about what you're going to do next, Emily. Then, I left her standing there. Because for the first time in our marriage, I didn't care what she had to say. And that terrified her. Emily wasn't used to losing. She had spent years crafting an image of herself, charming, confident, always in control. But now, I could see it all crumbling. After our confrontation, she didn't speak to me for the rest of the night. Not because she was giving me the silent treatment. This wasn't one of her usual mind games. No, this was something else. She was calculating, trying to figure out how to fix this, how to spin it in her favor. But there was no fixing it. She had already lost. The next morning, she was up early. I found her sitting at the kitchen counter, her phone in her hand, coffee untouched. She was staring at the screen like it held the answer to all her problems. Something wrong? I asked, grabbing a mug from the cabinet. She didn't look up. You know damn well something's wrong. I smirked, pouring my coffee. Oh, right. You're upset because you got caught. Must be tough. She snapped her head toward me. This doesn't have to be messy. I took a slow sip, watching her over the rim of my cup. It's already messy, Emily. Her fingers clenched around her phone. We could keep this between us. I tilted my head. Oh, so now you care about privacy? Her nostrils flared. I care about not having my personal business aired out for everyone to see. I chuckled. Should have thought about that before you started sleeping with Nathan. She flinched. Just a little. But I saw it. And that was satisfying. I set my cup down and leaned against the counter. What's the plan here, Emily? You think I'm just going to forget what I know? That I'll let you walk away without consequences? She took a slow breath, like she was trying to keep herself from snapping. I'm saying you don't have to be an idiot about this. You're hurt, I get it. But do you really want to ruin both of our lives over this? I smirked. No, just yours. Her jaw clenched. Jesus Christ, you're pathetic. I just shrugged. You already said that yesterday. Got anything new? She exhaled sharply, standing up and pacing the kitchen. You think this makes you look good? You're playing the victim, but when people see how petty you're being, they'll start asking questions. I arched an eyebrow. You mean the same people who already saw the video of you humiliating me in public? Her face twitched. Yeah, she hadn't forgotten about that part. Her perfect reputation had already taken a hit. People were talking. And once they found out about Nathan, she was done. I grabbed my phone, scrolling lazily through my messages. By the way, you might want to check your group chats. Emily froze. What? I looked up at her and smiled. People talk, Emily. You'd be surprised how fast word spreads when someone like you finally gets exposed. Her eyes widened slightly, and she snatched her phone, scrolling frantically. Then, I saw it. The moment it hit her. Her grip tightened, her face paling just slightly. What did you do? She whispered. I crossed my arms. Nothing. But apparently, one of your so-called friends had enough of your crap. The truth's out now. Her breath hitched. Who? I shrugged. Who knows? Maybe Ryan. Maybe someone else. Either way, doesn't matter. Everyone knows now. She stared at the screen, fingers tightening around the phone. No. This can't be happening. I smirked. Oh, but it is. She looked up at me, pure rage flashing in her eyes. You're ruining my life. I chuckled, shaking my head. No. Emily. You did that all by yourself. She was spiraling. I could see it in the way she paced, the way she gritted her teeth, the way she kept glancing at her phone like she could somehow make the messages disappear if she just willed it hard enough. She had spent years making me feel small, making me feel like I was lucky to have her, like I was beneath her. But now, she was the one losing everything, and there was nothing she could do about it. I left her to sit in her misery. While she spent the day desperately trying to do damage control, I focused on something else, securing my future. I called my lawyer. I moved money into my own account. I set up meetings. I made sure that when I walked away from this marriage, I would never have to look back. By the evening, Emily was fuming. She stormed into the bedroom while I was packing up some of my things. This isn't over, she snapped. I didn't even look at her. Oh, it definitely is. She stepped closer, crossing her arms. You really think you're walking away from this without a fight? I sighed, zipping up my bag. Emily, the fight is over. You lost. She clenched her jaw. I'll contest the divorce. You think this is going to be easy? You think I won't make your life hell? I finally looked at her. And I laughed. Because she still didn't get it. Go ahead, I said, smirking. Drag it out. Make a scene. At the end of the day, it won't change the fact that I'm done. Her eyes flickered, like she had finally realized how serious I was. She had spent years treating me like I was nothing. Like she could do whatever she wanted, and I'd still be there. But now, she was staring at a version of me she didn't recognize. A version that didn't need her. A version that had moved on before she even knew it. She swallowed, stepping back slightly. You'll regret this. I picked up my bag, walking toward the door. No, I said calmly. You will. Then, I left. And this time, I wasn't coming back. That was the last time I saw Emily. She fought the divorce at first, of course. But she had no case. The evidence of her affair, the witnesses, the financial records, it all worked against her. I walked away with everything I deserved. She lost her reputation, her status, her control. Nathan never stuck around. Her friends distanced themselves. And me? I moved on. I got my own place. Started traveling. Went to the gym. Met people who actually valued me. And guess what? I was happier than I had ever been. One day, months later, I got a text from an unknown number. Emily, I miss you. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, I did the one thing I never thought I'd have the strength to do. I deleted it. And that was the moment I knew. I had truly won. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.